Very briefly.
I'm afraid this debate actually in America is far more nuanced than what she says. All the Republican candidates in this election are expressing a traditional American view that America is a melting pot. It doesn't matter where you come from, but you have to be loyal to the flag and you have to be loyal to America. And there is this feeling in America. Now, Trump may be articulating this in a particularly controversial and extreme way, but for us to deny that many ordinary people in America are worried about their Americanness is to deny the real debate that's going on in America, which is a valid debate.
Order, just before the Honourable Lady resumes her speech.
Just to say we are not so tight for time as we thought about 10 minutes ago. The debate can continue until 7:30. Anne McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Sir David. And I would just say to the honourable member there that he talks about Republican politicians, but there are other politicians, there are other activists in the United States of America who don't agree with what his assessment of the situation. I want to look at Donald Trump, the man, the boy. As his first name suggests, he is the son of a Scottish immigrant, and I apologise for that. Like countless others, his mother, Mary Ann MacLeod, left her homeland during the Great Depression and went to what was, after all, the land of liberty. This desire for economic opportunity is the same thing that motivates many migrants from many other countries to go to America today. The Mexican migrants who Trump so roundly defamed are engaged in the same quest that his forebears undertook. As a man who purports to be proud of his New York heritage, Trump would do well to look to Lady Liberty for some advice on immigration. Of course, we would also do well to remind Donald Trump, as the son of a Scottish Presbyterian, of the countless generations of immigrants who left these shores and went to the US in search of religious toleration. The Puritans may have got a shock when they landed on Plymouth Rock, but they certainly did go on to forge a society where your religion was, to a greater or lesser extent, irrelevant in public life. So whilst trailblazers like Al Smith and John F. Kennedy still faced anti-Catholic prejudice when they ran for office, they were always able to fall back on the fundamental truth that religious bigotry goes against all of the Enlightenment values that America shares with Europe. It is easy for those of us protected by this parliamentary bubble to consider proposals and rhetoric such as Trump's as being distasteful, opportunistic. Some people thought it was funny and crude. But all of us in public life have a duty to work for the common good and to oppose discrimination. And I don't think anyone in here would disagree with that. Yep.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. The Honourable Member said earlier on in her speech that she hoped that the Home Secretary would consider whether this case was any different from the others that were raised. Does the Honourable Member not think that this case is considerably different from the other cases, in that this is a presidential candidate? And if a presidential candidate was banned and became president, then in those circumstances, then the ability to forge links and discuss policy on a whole range of issues would be extremely difficult.
Well, that is why I'm summing up and I'm giving, I think, both sides of the argument. I'm just maybe a bit more vociferous in my opposition to Donald Trump, the person. I do understand that. I understand that argument. But the way that I see it being different because he's a presidential candidate is that he should be less likely to get away with these things because he has far more influence over many more people. When you have someone of... Yes, I'll give way to my honourable friend.
Christie.
Thank you, Sir David. But surely the point is that Donald Trump wants to ban parliamentarians from this parliament entering America, so he should know better if he's a presidential candidate.
I completely agree with that. He should know better. And it kind of, made me smile to myself when I heard arguments from members opposite saying that we should not be interfering in anybody's chances in the political processes. And yet we have MPs in this parliament that he would stop from visiting his country. When you have someone of his prominence running for the most powerful political position on this planet, actively encouraging discrimination as state policy, that divides communities. It can't do anything else. That example leads to countless acts of low-level bigotry and hatred, which will never be reported. But I want to turn to some of those examples which have been reported, and the rise, not just down to what Donald Trump said, but his like, in Islamophobia. A friend of mine who is an SNP councillor in Glasgow talked after the Paris attacks of his son being afraid to walk to school because he was seeing the headlines on the front pages of newspapers, and one in particular claiming that a significant percentage, and I think it might even have said a majority of Muslims supported terrorism. That child was frightened to go to school. And when some Muslim children are going to school, they're being called terrorists and bombers. They have absolutely no connection to any of the terrorist activities that are going on. Today, David Cameron announced funding to assist in English language lessons. Now, I agree we should be supporting people to integrate. We should be supporting people, not forcing people. But my understanding is that this funding is for Muslim women. Well, what has religion got to do with the English language? And how will that work? Will people, Muslim women, be routinely tested to see if their English language skills are up to speed? Has my honourable friend beside me already passed that test, or does she have to take a test in English? It's ridiculous. And if he did indeed say that the money was for Muslim women, not women who don't speak English, but Muslim women, and that's not just how some of the press interpreted it, then that is wrong and in itself will assist Islamophobia. Now, I'm sure it's not deliberate, but we all need to remember that language is so important, and we all would do well to mind the language that we use. But Donald Trump, it wasn't just the language that he used, it was the intent behind a prepared statement. Now, in pre-war Europe, the Jews were forcibly registered. Donald Trump called for Muslims not to be just banned from coming into the country, but to be registered and to be tracked. And to my mind, there is no difference between that and what they did to the Jews in pre-war Europe. And that leads me on to a number of questions that I have for the Minister. Firstly, does he agree with his colleagues, some of his colleagues, that the impact of Donald Trump saying what he did is no greater and no more dangerous than their constituents saying it to each other? Secondly, is he comfortable that somebody like Donald Trump will automatically be allowed to come into this country when I know several people who cannot get their wives or their husbands into the country even for a visit? And I see he's shaking his head. But are they not as deserving of the right to visit this country? If he is allowed to be allowed into the country, will the Immigration Minister be expecting Donald Trump to retract what he said before he comes in here? And another question, if the President of China had called for all Christians to refuse entry to China, would he still have been invited to this country last year? Or would we have been saying, oh, but he's the president, because so many have said, oh, but he might be the president. I will when I finish my sentence. He's the president, or he's got the right to offend. Oh, but lots of my constituents think like that. Would he get the same treatment that Donald Trump is getting from this government?
Very pleased. On that very point about banning heads of state, it's widely known that Mecca has been banned for Christians for hundreds of years, yet we entertain and have entertained the King of Saudi Arabia. Indeed, Mecca and Medina are banned, prescribed for Christians.
I would just say that there are a number of other people that I'm not comfortable that they are cozying up to the UK government's cozying up to them for a number of other reasons, Saudi Arabia being amongst them. Does the Minister agree with me? I'm not expecting that the Minister's writing all these down is going to answer them all, but I live in hope. Does he agree with me that my honourable friend, the member for Oakland and South Perthshire, always gives top-rate, passionate speeches about her personal commitment to equality for all? And is it acceptable for us to welcome in the man who would stop my honourable friend and her children from entering the United States? And finally, my final question, that is, not my final statement, will the Minister join me in condemning the nasty, abusive, racist tweets that my honourable friend has sat here receiving on account of her daring to speak out against Donald Trump? And does he think Donald Trump's statement, his anti-Muslim statement, may have contributed to the abuse that she is constantly having to put up with? I've completely lost my place now, but no, I haven't. So, Donald Trump is on the record as saying that his second favourite book after the Bible is The Art of the Deal, written by one Donald J. Trump. Perhaps it would be beneficial if he spent more time reading the Constitution of the United States, because, as President Obama's press secretary pointed out, I certainly will.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way, and she's making a very good speech in actual fact. But on the point about the Constitution of the United States, Donald Trump has actually suggested that Cruz can't stand for the presidency either. Cruz, who's the other Republican candidate, in the election race. So it shows it's not just in a way confined to Muslims, but it's confined to other people. So the man's whole attitude is questionable, and where his direction is going politically. But more importantly, where is the Republican Party going, putting two candidates up like that one is as bad as the other?
That's absolutely, I agree with that, and it is a matter for that political party, but it's a very good point to raise, and maybe a very good reason for us all to be supporting Hillary Clinton to become the next president of the United States. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I'm not allowed to comment on the presidential elections. But as I was about to say, as President Obama's press secretary pointed out, Donald Trump's statements make him unfit to be president because he cannot pledge to uphold the Constitution of the United States if he doesn't believe in religious liberty and freedom from discrimination. Or is he going to amend the Constitution on his own? And how would the people of the United States put up with that? And whilst Trump's right-wing rhetoric might help him pick up votes in the primary, in the general election, the vast majority of voters in the States will no doubt be horrified that such an individual could lead them on the world stage. Trump believes himself to be plain-spoken, but I don't believe that appealing to, and I understand some of the arguments around people don't want robotic politicians who just churn out pre-rehearsed press statements, but there is a huge difference between that and what we've got here. And I don't believe that appealing to fears and prejudice is a language and common sense of people either here or in the United States. It is tempting to give Trump a taste of his own medicine. It's very tempting to bar him. Would he love it? Would we be giving a gift to him? Would, as some people have argued, just give him even more publicity? Or is the argument stronger that if we let him in, we will give him publicity because having said what he said and caused such controversy, he'll be on every TV programme and every chat show in the land spouting his nonsense. Although I do see an argument for allowing him to come in and do that, because I do believe that he won't be able to help himself and he will say things that will render him chargeable and guilty or able to be prosecuted for inciting racial hatred. Finally, he's not a murderer. I'm just going to respond to that comment that was he's not a murderer, but surely the argument can't be that we only want to ban murderers, we only want to jail or charge murderers. There are other crimes, and it is a crime, and it's a crime that has a real impact on people's lives. Maybe not my life, but it has a real impact on many people's lives. Finally, Sir David, there have been suggestions, many suggestions on that side, that we should keep quiet about this. In fact, members of the public who signed the petition, and some of them are here today, that they should just keep quiet. So I'm going to end by letting everyone know that I have an EDM marking today, which is Martin Luther King Day. In fact, the 30th anniversary of Martin Luther King Day, and encouraging everyone to sign that EDM if you've not already. And I'm going to quote Martin Luther King, who said, "The ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people. We won't be silenced."